Welcome to the 10-minute series of videos related to competency-based programs. My name is Madeleine Bazurgi from the Office of Academic Development at Dawson College, and I'm pleased to present Diagnostic Formative and Summative Assessments. In competency-based programs, rather than evaluating students' ability to retain course content, assessment of student learning is focused on verifying that students have met desired learning outcomes that are achieved by exercising competencies. Assessments are conducted for formative feedback, a grade, or for a pass. However, they are much more than that. Often, assessments are the biggest source of motivation for students and drive their decisions of when and how to study. Assessment is conducted before, during, or after the learning takes place. The purpose of different types of assessment is to help students advance, to measure student learning, or to attest to the achievement of competencies. What is a diagnostic assessment? A diagnostic assessment gauges incoming students' knowledge and skills. They are not usually worth any marks, and they're conducted before the learning starts, before a lesson, before a unit, a course, or even before a program. The purpose of a diagnostic assessment is to inform the teaching practice in the classroom in support of student learning and achievement. A diagnostic assessment informs the lesson planning. It helps identify student needs, abilities, and readiness for the lessons ahead. It helps the teacher identify areas needing more time or more focus. And in a pre- and post-test situation, it can measure and analyze growth. A well-designed or effective diagnostic assessment is designed to identify misconceptions or common errors students may make, but it also identifies strengths and skill level. More importantly, the results have value for the teacher so that lessons can be adjusted. The teacher can determine how much time to focus on a certain topic or on the development of certain skills. In a pre-test and post-test situation, a diagnostic assessment can show students how much they have learned or improved, and thus building esteem. Diagnostic assessments are conducted prior to the learning period, before a unit, lesson, course, or program. Here are some examples of diagnostic assessments. If you're a physics teacher, you may ask your students to take a math test prior to your course in order to gauge their level of mathematics. Or piano playing skills can be tested before an advanced piano course. If you're teaching Java, perhaps you may ask students to solve logic problems before beginning their programming course. Visual arts students may present a portfolio before entering a program, and students may be asked to present a topic orally before a public speaking class. Diagnostic assessments are conducted before the learning period. Formative assessments are conducted during the learning period. Formative assessments are assessment for learning. Typically, they are low stakes. They are worth no or few marks so that students are permitted to err without penalty, and there's no significant effect on the overall grade. The purpose of a formative assessment is to advance learning by monitoring student learning and providing quality feedback. This gives students opportunities to adjust their learning as they progress in a course. Paul Black, who's often lauded as the forefather of this concept, described formative assessment using the analogy of cooking. As a cook is making her soup, she occasionally tastes it to decide if it needs more spice or ingredients. With each taste, she is assessing her soup and using that feedback to change or improve it. In other words, the cook is engaging in formative assessment. Well-designed and effective formative assessments give teachers the pulse on student learning. It gives teachers an opportunity to give quality feedback so that students can adjust or improve. Effective formative assessments Also use action-focused statements that give students suggestions for future work. And when conducted frequently, prevent counterproductive cramming by encouraging better spacing of learning. Lastly, formative assessments increase student engagement. When a dining client is presented with the cook's soup for a final evaluation, this is called a summative assessment. Summative assessments capture student learning up to a given point. They are conducted at the end of a learning period, and students may be evaluated against a criteria or standard. Summative assessments are high stakes and provide students with a grade or a pass-fail. They are utilized for the evaluation of student learning and achievement. The purpose of summative assessments is to measure learning by verifying that expected learning outcomes have been achieved. Well-designed and effective summative assessments are comprehensive, but beyond just knowledge checking. They require students to make broad connections, to demonstrate synthesized skills, and to explore deeper concepts. In competency-based programs, summative assessments require students to exercise competencies at a certain level. This level depends on when the evaluation is conducted. I will clarify this statement as we progress in the video series. Let me give you examples of formative and summative assessments. Formative assessments include but are not limited to knowledge checks, such as quizzes and short essays, problems to solve, short demos, self-assessments and peer assessments, critiques and discussions, as well as preliminary proposals. Summative assessments include projects or products, productions or performances, assignments, and exams. Summative assessments are conducted at the end of a learning period, but how long is that learning period? A summative assessment can be conducted at the end of a unit that is comprised of several lessons. It can also be conducted at midterm or at the midpoint of a course. And as most of us already know, summative assessments can be conducted at the end of a course. But they can also be conducted at the end of a series of courses or at the end of a program, just like our comprehensive examination. What's important to retain is that summative assessments are high stakes and comprehensive, requiring students to integrate knowledge and skills acquired up to a certain point in time. Let me give you a quick example of summative assessments for a series of piano courses. The assessments will require that students integrate knowledge of music and piano playing skills at different points in time in a competency-based program. I'll return to this example in another video. Let's say that in our program, the competency to perform musical works is developed in 4 piano courses. At the midterm point of the very first piano course, student learning will be measured with an assessment requiring them to play a simple folk song. This midpoint summative assessment will not ask them to answer questions related to major or minor scales, nor explain the different musical genres. Those concepts were addressed with formative assessments along the way. If the competency is to perform musical works, then the summative assessment will require students to exercise this competency, but not at the level indicated in the ministerial devis, but at a level appropriate to a first piano course in a series of 4. Students will be asked to mobilize acquired knowledge and skills to play a simple folk song. At the end of the very same course, a final exam, also summative in nature, will require students to play a simple jazz piece, but of greater complexity than the folk song. The summative assessments require students to mobilize their knowledge of music, the skills and attitudes developed up to a point in time, but at different levels or performance standards. But by the end of the fourth course, students should be able to exercise the competency to perform musical works at a level established by the ministerial standard. At this point, when they are able to play a complex Latin jazz piece, the competency is said to be achieved. By the end of the program, and with the help of other courses in solo techniques and artistry, etc., during the comprehensive examination, students should be able to play several pieces with a full Latin jazz orchestra and perform an improvised solo. All of these assessments are summative assessments. In the next presentation, we will take a look at what the Commission de l'évaluation de l'enseignement collégial has recommended to Dawson College concerning final evaluations. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next presentation.